Welcome to my power earnings gap video for the week of October 27th to October 31. Hope you all had a nice Halloween. You're looking at a daily chart of Bloom Energy, which is not anywhere near a base. And I use these earnings gaps as an indicator of the strength of the market. Obviously, with the indexes at new highs, we know we're in a strong uptrend. But the earnings gaps, and it doesn't have to be earnings, it can be an FDA approval or a contract. Like we saw with the QURE, this is a biotech, medical biotech stock that had a FDA approval, and you could see this thing gapped up and just continued higher, surfing the five. And that is another indicator for me of how strong this market is, how these gaps are played. In a bear market, it'll just go up and just come right back down. In a sideways market, it'll probably stall and go sideways, but we're in a strong uptrend. So these things are being bought and trading higher. Also, Wolf had a contract with Google, and that's a gap. It's not an earnings gap, but it's a gap up. And the high was 876 there in August, and now it's what, at $15. So, it pays to pay attention, or as I like to say, moves not to be ignored in some of these names. I'm going to go back to Bloom Energy because they reported last week. Obviously, this thing's extended. The base is way back here, and it just pulled back to its 21. They reported Tuesday, and on Wednesday, gapped up 18%. Now it pulled back to its 5 on Friday. They did announce a secondary offering, but this is one that I'm watching for a bounce off of here. And this is the way you're going to have to play these strong stocks in this type of a market. They're not going to set up in bases like they did, like Bloom did way back here. It's not going to do that anymore. This market's too strong. So you're going to have to buy them off moving averages or, when they undercut and rally. Yeah, they're just not going to set up in bases. Strong stocks are not going to do that right now. So Bloom is my first one that I'm paying attention to. I've tried to narrow it down to 10 and I couldn't. The Teradyne gapped up on Wednesday. This is a short little base here, about 3 weeks. 150.71 was the trigger, and it just went through that pivot. With power, you could see this earnings was a 21% move with 225% above average volume. So I'm waiting for the five to catch up. I'm not going to buy it up here at 181. I'm going to let this five catch up, and if I wanted to buy it, I'd buy a bounce off of there and not chase it way up there. Flowserve, they reported wow, they had a big move, 31% move with more than 400% above the 50-day average volume. Now, this one did break out of a base here. If I go to the weekly, you can see this, double bottom here. It's had a cup and then a double bottom, just blew out of there, man. Nice move, big volume, probably going higher, but it's going to have to wait for this moving average to catch up. And the high on this day was 70.32. So this thing's got a ways to go now. On Friday, it was still 7.5% above its five. But nice move for Flowserve. A couple of healthcare related names. Cardinal Health gapped up out of a base. You can clearly see this consolidation pattern. Gapped up on Thursday, 15% with 200% above average daily volume. Made a new high on Friday. So it's just telling you this is a really strong market. Identifying these names can be beneficial to your portfolio. This is Guardian Health, had that $68 pivot and just blew through that like poop through a goose here, and hit 95 on Thursday, had an inside day on Friday, but that's a 28% move with 345% above average 50-day average volume. So like I say, these are moves not to be ignored, Dan. Emergent Biosolutions, I have no idea what these guys do. I probably should look into it, vaccines. Which has been in the news a lot lately, but this one had a nice cup with handle pattern. Trigger was 966 or 1010, whichever way you look at it, the high in the handle or the old high. Yeah, traded up 36% with more than 700% above average daily volume, and it pulled back to the five action on that day. Let's take a look at a 5-minute chart on this action here. There you go, right at the open, and it just blew up inside day on Friday. So let that five catch up. It's still 11% above its five. So these things are pretty extended. CHRW, this is a trucking company. Yeah, and this one broke out of a base with that 137.77 as your trigger. It powered right through that, powered through the pivot with that massive volume. 20% move and just had an inside day on Friday, still 8% above its five. So you got to let these moving averages catch up. If they trade sideways for a few days or even down and undercut the low of that day, that's okay. As long as it finds support at that five, that's what I'm looking for. 149, it doesn't have far to go to catch that. Joe, this is one that I wasn't going to include because it's a real estate development. REITs, they usually don't move that much, but can't ignore this move here on Thursday. 12% move with 200% above average daily volume. Then on Friday, another high volume move and making new highs. So, it's a thinner name, but I just wanted to include that. It's got this growth profile, and that one looks pretty good. St. Joe, let me say ATEC. This one just broke out on Friday. It broke out of a base, short little 3-day handle. It pulled back to the five, closed near the lows of the daily range, 21%, but still, 16% move. So I included that one. That one's on watch for me. These guys, they have a moat in spinal surgery. I think this one could go a lot higher over time. ILMN, I know people don't like biotechs, but when they move, I can't ignore them. This is a 25% move on Friday. 111 is your trigger, and it had power through the pivot. I believe it's the highest volume since way back here, December of last year, so nearly a year. And yeah, that's a move not to be ignored for Illumina Medical Research stock. TVTX, another one of these drug biotech names, breaking out of a base here. I can't ignore that. That's a 19% move with, nearly 200% above average daily volume. You can see the biotech group, it's really coming on strong here. Now it's a top 10 ranked group, and this one's breaking out. So yeah, I'm going to monitor this one and a couple more, and then I'm going to move on to last week's earnings gaps. This is SPXC, SPX Technologies, making cooling systems. And this one broke out 13% move, nearly 300% above average daily volume. You could see the sales growth 4, 10, 23, and the earnings growth 10, 16, 32. Yeah, that's not to be ignored. You got the blue dot it's indicating strength versus the index. And the last one is net. And this one I was going to put on my ready list last week, but they had earnings. I like this consolidation pattern, trading tight within the base, near the moving averages. And Friday, bam, 14% move. Very nice with pretty strong volume there for net. All right, that's it for last week. The prior week we had some names really ramping. This is INBX, and this is what I'm talking about with FDA approval. I know it's a thin name, but man, this thing is just powering hard. That's what you want to see in a bull market like we're in. We get the news, and this is just an event, right? With massive volume, the highest volume ever, and it just keeps ramping higher and higher and higher. That's an indication of the type of market that we're in right now. A couple others that I like, a little less speculative. Carpenter Technology had this gap on the 23rd, a 23% move with volume, and now it made a new high here, 326, then pulled back to its five. 308 here. It was the low, I believe. Yeah, 308 tested, and then popped higher on Thursday, made a new high of 330, pulled back, and it's still a little bit above that five, but I'm definitely watching this one this week. And that's the only way you're going to be able to buy something, powered through that pivot of 290. I don't think it's going back to 290. I think you're gonna have to buy it off the five. Fix is another one that I like. Man, I kicked myself for this one. I had it, God, like at $200 in 2023, I believe. And I never bought it back. I was a dummy. Yeah, it was down here like 150 bucks back in 23. Yeah. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Cry in your beer. Anyway, this one gapped higher on the 24th, a nice 19% move, and then, went sideways. Yeah, it made a new high on Thursday. 1,020, and then pulled back on Friday to its five. So I think that thing is ready to pop this week off that five and make a new high above the 1,020. So the $1,000 level is definitely a large, round, psychological Jesse Livermore type of number for comfort systems. A couple others real quickly here. MedP, one that I had on my ready list a while back, but I got too impatient. I took it off. Finally, it popped, and now it pulled back to its five. I know it undercut the low of the gap day. That's okay. It's just support at the five. I think you got to watch for a pop maybe above this day, 595. Yeah. Yeah. MedP looks very good to me. And another one that I like is VICR, which gapped up the prior week, 2 weeks ago, not last week, on the 22nd. Today it's November 2. And this one, rallied up, made a new high. This is what you want to see, a gap and go, right? And then pull back gently, lower volume, pull back to the five. So I'm looking for that one to pop next week too. So those could show up on the ready list. I also wanted to point out some earnings this week that had strong moves the last time they reported earnings. This is VSAT, one of the strongest names in one of the strongest groups of telecom infrastructure. Anyway, on August 6th, yeah, it had a 31% move. So this one's definitely shown the ability to gap and go. Could it do it again? Sure. It's a little more extended now, but I don't see why this thing can't pop like we saw it with Bloom Energy last week. STRL, by the way, they report on the 5th, which is Wednesday. Sterling reports tomorrow, and I'm definitely interested in this one. It popped 9% last time on earnings and just continues to climb higher. Yeah, it pulled back, found support a couple times, but this is in the right there in the AI data center. It's right in that sweet spot there, and I think they're going to have a strong report. I'm not saying that it's going to gap up again, but we'll see. The ALAB, I do think this one's going to gap up. Another one in the sweet spot here. Last time it gapped, yeah, 29%. It ran up and made a new high of 262. Now it undercut the 50 and trying to rally back above. There's no reason why they're not going to deliver another blowout quarter. I think they will. You never know the reaction of the stock the first day or two, but I think a strong report will be rewarded with STRL Labs. Anyway, they're going to report on Tuesday after the market closes. That's it for me on the power earnings gaps for last week and a couple of the week before, and some that let's speculate. Maybe we'll see this week we get a couple more power earnings gaps. Thank you for watching. Never give up.